coach, the term coach comes, you know where this comes from?
No?
Don't Google it. 15th century Hungarian village of Kocs, Kocs,
Hmm.
manufactured a highly innovative suspension-equipped horse-drawn carriage designed to comfortably transport passengers, basically take someone from A to B. That's the role of a coach, is to transport somebody
Hmm.
from A to B. Team, welcome back to another week with Drew and Alex and the Mops and Mo's podcast. We are revisiting the first part of this episode that you're about to hear because we left something out, or we don't feel like we did it justice.
Yeah, I think we touched on it at least. I know we discussed it, but I remember like a few days ago after recording, I texted you like, did we do an
Not as
adequate
much as we
job?
could have.
Yeah. So the topic I think we wanted to reinsert right up front is coach pay.
Yeah.
Maybe specifically like living wages for coaches, like a salary
Yeah.
people can like build a career on.
Or just like eat food with
Yeah, that'd be good.
in some localities.
Yeah. Um, I I I think we did an adequate job in the episode of saying that like coaches are the face of these programs, coaches are the core of these programs, but I don't think we dug really into the like how big a problem the pay issue is and how much of a determining factor it's going to play on the future of some of these programs, especially as like other services stand up programs where they want to hire coaches too.
Yes.
I think we've had some conversations. I think in one corner of one service in the special operations side, they've cracked the code a little bit on how do you write contracts that require the winner of the contract to hire a caliber of coach that requires them to pay decently. I think the military has a chance here to have a really positive impact on the coaching industry if we can fix the problem we currently have, where like people who follow the social media have probably seen my comparisons where like coaches with master's degrees and years of experience who are expected to change the culture of the Army are getting paid about the same as a private first class. That seems like a problem to me.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before. We've done almost a whole episode on it titled Is Contracting Killing Strength and Conditioning? We got some heat for that, which is fine. It's kind of why we did it. But I think the point that needs to be made, and we've said this before, with all of these programs coming online, the Department of Defense / War is going to, I think, unless somebody can prove me otherwise, will be the largest employer of strength and conditioning professionals in the world, which by extension means that the contracting companies will in fact be the largest employer of strength and conditioning coaches in the world because the military doesn't actually employ these individuals, they contract it out. But that sets up a really interesting economic disparity, which is to say that the price is a race to the bottom. You are always going to have companies trying to underbid each other so that they can win said contract. That's a very interesting and unique economic formula that doesn't necessarily map to how you might traditionally think of supply and demand. Like as the demand goes up, the price, like effectively, you're going to end up in a race to the bottom where unless something changes, and like you mentioned, certain corners of the military have figured this out in some sense. But unless something changes, you're just going to consistently have staff salaries get cut. And we'll see it. And I think you'll see it in unique ways. It may not necessarily be the dollar value of the salary. It might be an undercut in sort of the CEOs or the CEUs that are offered, or maybe the way that educational incentives are itemized. There's going to be creative ways, and this isn't a knock on contracting companies because this is the business that they're in, but there will be creative ways to save money. And as we've pointed out, again, unless somebody can objectively prove otherwise, I think the folks that suffer in that price cut are the staff. I mean, it's the same at every organization, every corporation in the world. Like the bottom of the totem pole is where you see the cuts. So, to your point, what you're about to hear is a conversation where you and I create our ideal version of embedded human performance. And we did not feel as though we gave that its due diligence. So I think in both of our ideal versions of human performance, we would pay the coaches more.
I think that makes me feel better that we addressed that particular variable in this whole thing sufficiently.
You can't not treat your staff like professionals and expect a professional product.
Especially when there's like very little guidance for what the coaches are supposed to do, and senior leaders seem to disagree on what they're supposed to do. So you're essentially hiring these folks and then sending them out there to like make everything better.
Mhm.
Like if you want somebody who's going to like proactively solve problems, create new programs, develop things, build relationships, all of the things you expect these folks to do, I would hope that comes with those folks being compensated in a way that they want to stick around for more than a year or two until they can get a job that actually pays enough for them to afford lodging.
Mhm. Yeah, because there are no locality adjustments in contracting, are there?
That
Y
is up to the
You have to write it in.
contractor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to write it in.
that is up to the employer.
Correct.
But I do want to clarify before we let this one go. Again, we've had whole episodes on the contracting issue. We don't want to derail this entirely. It's easy to blame the direct employer, the company that won the contract. But a large portion of this is a feedback loop where I think those companies have to communicate with the government to teach the government how to
Yeah.
develop contracts that get us to the ideal end state where we're partners in trying to make something better rather than oppositional.
The government I mean, contracting defines the rules of the game. The companies then just play to those rules. So you can't
Mhm.
blame them necessarily. But again, to your point, there are examples out there of how this is being done well. Maybe we should find and share those. I don't know, but
Hopefully, we'll be able to do that here with an example soon.
exactly.
Waiting on you
So
guys, public affairs.
yeah, team, enjoy this week's episode where we unabashedly give you our 2 cents on what the right answer looks like with embedded human performance. 100% of NFL teams, 100% of NHL teams, 87% of NBA teams, they all trust Teamworks. The tech platform powering elite sport is now powering military readiness. Learn more today at teamworkstactical.com. We should have just the two of us playing.
Just the two of us.
That's probably licensed. We're getting right into it this week, gang. And to be honest, we have a sort of structure, but there's not a plan necessarily.
We're winging it pretty hard.
We're winging it hard, but on purpose, because that can lead to some fun stuff.
Can I set up this one? Can I like explain
yeah,
what we're doing?
Yeah, sure.
We haven't done it in a few episodes, but historically, one of our frequent closers is the keys to the kingdom question. Like, if you were in charge,
I see what you're doing here.
if you were in charge, like, what
Yeah.
would you change? What would you do? And this is basically us asking ourselves that question.
I was hoping I had keys somewhere in my desk.
Mm.
Yeah, and I should preface your preface. There you go. Shake the keys. I'll preface your preface by saying that we recognize that a certain subset of our listeners might think we're douches for thinking we could restructure this in the first place. And we'll take that. We'll wear that. Nothing that we're about to say do we believe is like should be law. This is just our thoughts on the concept. So
I would love to hear people's like. This is one like if people aren't aware, Spotify has comments now. You can just like comment on podcast episodes, but you're welcome to send emails, contact us forms, DMs, or might get through, might not. But I want to hear what we're about to do because we haven't actually said what we're about to do. What we're about to do is like, how would we redo embedded military human performance? Maybe with like a particular lean towards H2F because they're the giant in the space right now, and it's the place where we have a common language and stuff. But like, how would we redo that? What would we change structurally, doctrinally, philosophically, whatever, legally? And I certainly want to hear from the audience after they listen to this. Like, what do they agree on? What do they disagree on? Is there something we missed completely?
And please, none of the like circle jerk LinkedIn type comments. Like, give us some real stuff. I was thinking
Drew is allergic to LinkedIn.
I just can't stand it. Maybe we'll do a different episode on that.
I'll say something different. Like you think LinkedIn's bad for this. I think the place where it's the worst is actually the professional gatherings.
Well, that's just LinkedIn in person.
Yeah, exactly. But like the conferences and the symposiums and the wherever, like it's this competition about like who can pat themselves on the back the best. And like, how can we make ourselves look the best to whichever senior leaders we invited to witness our thing?
Yeah.
This is going to be a slightly different approach. This is going to like ideally tackle head on where we think the problems are so we can get better.
Although you said that, I will say, and maybe we said this already on the podcast, but the this year's HTF symposium I thought was fantastic.
I did. It was pretty
Probably
good.
the best one we've had. And I wanted to back up a little bit because you mentioned comments on Spotify. You know, one area of the world that I think would do really well to add a comment section is Zillow.
Mm. I think, have you seen the Saturday Night Live Zillow skit from like a year or two ago?
I don't think so.
I think we just need to recognize that like Zillow is not for selling houses.
No, of course
Zillow is
not.
like,
It's for spying on people.
it's a social media activity. Like,
It's wild. And maybe that's just a generational thing. I don't know if like the young guns are into it, but like the other day I had a thought Google Maps should buy Zillow and layer the two. That'd be, whew, I don't think the world's ready for that level of man. Anyway, embedded human performance. So I think one thing that we had this episode in the back pocket for a while. Recently, we've been branching out. There's been some movement across the entire military in terms of these programs getting stood up. Navy comes to mind. Marine Corps is having some conversation, obviously Space Force. So I say all that because some of what's informing these talking points we're going to hit come from other branches kind of being at the precipice of launching some of this stuff. So that's not to say that this is what you should do, but this is, I think, what we would do. And we're going to start by renaming the 5 pillars of H2F. What are they now? Do you know off the top of your head?
if I can, and I'll in a second, I will Google the Total Force Fitness pillars. Although I
Yep.
think those are about to get renamed because we should try and keep this as like service generic as possible.
Yep.
But specifically for the Army, uh, physical, mental, spiritual, nutritional, and sleep.
Sleep. Yep. So as currently stands, you've got the Pentagon shape, the 5 pillars. We think they're kind of lame. And so what we thought we would do is rebrand those. And I think we want to give a shout out here to Ben Bergeron.
Mhm.
Not if he's a listener, sick. Don't think he is. One of the OG kind of CrossFit guys, CrossFit New England. He's got a really slick branding model. We didn't take these directly from him, but they did inspire us. And we have, I'll just throw these out for folks, our 5 factors of health, which we may rename that. We'll call them pillars for this purpose, maybe. Move, eat, think, recover, and connect. You want to dive into any of those?
I mean, I think it's worth me pausing for a second to say you just called them our 5 factors of health. I think they are slightly modified from Bergeron's. Bergeron's are eat, sleep, train, think, and connect. So like train was rebranded to move, but I cannot claim any credit for either picking these 5 or the switch from train to move. I was actually very skeptical for like we have implemented these a little bit at my day job, mostly from pressure by Adam Whistler and Kat Oswald, who are fantastic. So shout out to both of them. Kat was a recent podcast guest.
Friend of the show.
I was like not totally certain about it. In particular, I wasn't certain about it because at my day job, we're a government agency and it felt a little bit weird for a government agency to just like borrow something from Ben Bergeron and like make it our framework.
I'm going to steal it.
But we've been using it for a few years now, and it seems to work pretty well to frame discussions about health, wellness, and performance.
Well, and to your point, I don't know if this is chicken and the egg, which came first, but like the current pillars, like pillars versus staffing, like it's this weird. I think the intent with obviously the branding and the naming is to create familiarity for service members to engage with an organization, in this case H2F. When you make the 5 factors of health, if we want to call them that, if you make the pillars a little bit sexier, I think it allows you to be a little bit more fluid in terms of crossing scopes and multidisciplinary, quote unquote. You're not attached to a specific pillar, i.e. a specific service. You work within potentially one or more factors of that health model, if that makes sense.
And I think to clarify what you said there, because it might have been confusing without some context about like pillars versus staffing.
Correct.
The because they're treated as like interchangeable, you end up in a world where like the dietitian owns the nutrition pillar and the physical therapist owns the
Right.
physical pillar and the OT owns the mental pillar. And hopefully the chaplain is integrated because they own the spiritual pillar.
Mhm.
And like that's like anathema to the whole concept of interdisciplinary human performance, where like people should be touching multiple pillars and like the pillars are not the same as the staffing structure. And it creates these weird battles where like the cognitive performance specialist doesn't work for the occupational therapist, but in the org chart, they fall under them. Like the strength coaches don't work for the physical therapist, but on the org chart, they kind of fall under them and the ATs. And like, it's just a whole weird
Mhm.
thing where like the framework of how we deliver it is like kind of confused with the organization of our staff. And I don't think that's
Yeah.
ideal.
It's almost, and this is gonna be weird without a visual, but it's almost as though in the current model, the pillars sit above the staff. So the staff is between the service member and the pillars.
Mm.
With something like this, the factors of health sit closer to the service member, and then the staff is above that, kind of facilitating those factors in whatever manner they deem necessary.
Getting a little woo woo there, my
That is a
dude.
little woo woo. I think one thing I do want to point out, though, that folks might have realized is that we do not have a spiritual pillar per se. Do we want to speak to that?
Yeah, because I think one, like spiritual ties in, I think inevitably all of the pillars tie into all of the other pillars. That's
Exactly.
unavoidable. I think there's a lot of spiritual in the connection pillar, but there's just as like we just talked about like the spirituality of like meals
Hmm.
that
Table
connects into the
theology.
into eat. Um, so I don't, since none of these can like be addressed on their own. I don't think like just because there's no spiritual pillar doesn't mean we don't think spirituality is important. We obviously think spirituality is important. We've done a bunch of discussions around that. I just don't think it's,
It almost,
I haven't found the need to have a spiritual lens in the way we
correct.
talk about health, fitness, and wellness. Like it's not missed if you cover all the others. That's my thought. I
I
don't know.
think in a weird way, I'm just now realizing this, by rebranding it this way, you almost give those pillars and those specialties more freedom to move and flex and like try things and do things. Because with a spiritual pillar assigned to a chaplain, which is not really embedded in the team, you end up just kind of brushing off that aspect entirely. Whereas if you do something like in this case, connect, granted, we were thinking of like social cohesion, which is a whole different conversation about why that's entirely missed. But you can have sprinklings of spirituality within a lot of these, and it allows your chaplain or whomever is serving in that role to kind of add their flavor to some of this stuff. Like, who's to say that movement can't be a spiritual practice for some people? And opening it up like this, I think, allows for some of that. So, if you're out there and thinking of throwing some pillars onto your embedded sports performance model or thinking of changing some pillars, like take R5, move, eat, think, recover, and connect.
I still feel we're calling it R5.
Well, we did, but we have a podcast and we said it, and so that's how it works. Where do you want to go next?
I think it. Do we want to save structural stuff for when we get to like policy things? Do we save that for later? Like what office owns it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, we'll save that for when we get into like weird policy nonsense. Um, I think that then kind of brings us to a conversation about branding.
Branding, which honestly falls off the back of what we were just saying, because I want you to talk about this entrepreneur phenomenon that you mentioned on social media today.
Yeah, it's something I've been kicking around the last week or two. And it really stems from a realization I had that if at my day job I could just stop caring about trying to change things, my life would get drastically easier. Like if every time some agency on base told me, no, you can't do that, I just accepted that no, my life would be astonishingly easy. I would do very few things. I'd sit in my office. I would
Mhm.
attend meetings. Um, our scope would be very limited, but I would certainly not get fired because it's the government. That's exactly what they want me to do.
Mm.
But the reality of trying to build these human performance programs is that I think if we're honest with ourselves, we're hiring teams and giving them very little guidance and just telling them to like make people healthier and fitter, and they have to go figure it out. And and the military is extremely resistant to change. So like when you pop a couple medical providers into an operational unit space and say you're going to do medical care there, that freaks out a lot of like traditional medical people. And when
Mhm.
you plop coaches in a space and say you're gonna like make physical training better, that freaks out a lot of NCOs who are used to owning physical training. And like this whole process of like injecting civilians to improve all this stuff, like you were essentially trying to build something new inside an organization that really does not like change or new things. And I
Or
think
outsiders.
you have to approach it with like an entrepreneurial mindset,
Mhm.
but understanding that the people you work for and the people you're going to have to deal with will resent that.
I think what I would add to that from like changing slash rebuilding from scratch, it's a recognition that marketing and branding are a hugely undervalued talent, maybe, or component to this. I remember like the early days, especially with H2F, there was this, I called it like the if you build it, they will come mindset. Like we're going to do the facilities and have the equipment and the staff, and everyone's just going to show up and not recognizing that, like, man, if they don't like you, like they're not going to be there. And what's like the first step to get people to like you? Like sell yourself to them. It's sales, it's marketing.
I think that led us down some questionable paths though, because I also remember the early days. And
Like you and me?
no, I'm talking about like
Oh,
early days of H2F.
sure.
Basically, every team set up their own Instagram page separate from the brigade they fell under, almost as though
Yep.
they were a separate element than their brigade.
Yep.
They set up their own logo,
Yep.
often inspired by but different from whatever their brigade's thing was,
Mhm.
Falcons, Devils, whatever. Um, most of those pages, and like I took this personally because like the reason Mops and Mo's exist is because when I tried to run the physical fitness school social media page by the book, I couldn't really do very much. Most of those H2F teams just didn't do it by the book. Nobody was like a UPAR. Nobody was
No, I
external
paid.
official presence trained. Nobody was coordinating with the PAO. It was the Wild West.
I paid
We
for our website.
we were doing whatever we wanted. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think we've had this conversation before. In theory, these human performance teams are just part of the staff of the unit, but no other staff section in the unit feels the need to like have their own brand. And
I mean, but companies have logos.
sure,
So, and we were
that's
talking
fair.
about
That's a good
this.
counterpoint.
We were talking about this before we hit record. Like this model is unique because it is not mandatory. Like the staff shops are mandatory. I would imagine that if they were required to literally pull in customers, they would do a lot more branding. Um,
Hmm.
and I actually, because I hear what you're saying, the social media thing's interesting because now you're not even allowed to have social media anymore at all. But like, we invested early in a website, and I think in like a weird way, there's something attractive to like for service members. There's something attractive in something not feeling army in this case. Like
I want
you're,
to go back to something you said there about like the staff sections are mandatory and human
it's
performance is
like the
not mandatory.
DMV. The DMV doesn't need to market to you. You don't have a choice.
No, I got it. But like you have just explained why human performance programs are constantly trying to justify their own existence because the rest is mandatory. But at the same time, I
Hmm.
don't know if that's true. Like the Army restructured recently. My old battalion got deleted because they decided that brigade engineer battalions weren't mandatory. So like
Yeah, but
they're
like
gone.
that's different. That's a product in a weird way. Staff sections are services.
Hmm.
Like you can't the people that give you your ID card, you have to go there. You don't have a choice.
But like we don't like some staff sections exist at echelons and don't exist at lower echelons. There's no S9 in a battalion. There is at a
Sure,
brigade or a division.
sure, but like S1, right? Your personnel folks, the people you
Uh-huh.
go to in processing, out process, like you you're not going there because they have slick branding and like an awesome
Yeah.
tagline. You're going there because you don't have a choice. They're the only people that provide that service. Whereas with H2F or Thor 3 or whatever, it's got to look and feel cool. Otherwise, you're not going to engage in it because you have, I think a better way of thinking about this is you have competition. Embedded human performance teams at like embedded, they're
Mm-hmm.
competing against other places you could go to do the same
Sure.
thing. If I want to out process, I can't go anywhere. I have to go here.
Sure.
I can't go anywhere else. So for lack of competition, I think the branding
I would suggest that if in like the dream future for embedded military human performance, we will get to a place where it is not seen as optional.
well, yeah, you would want it to just be
Not because you wrote a policy memo that says this is mandatory now, because I don't think that's the way to get there,
no, I agree.
but because we see it as just like S1, S2, S3, S4, like
Mm,
it's a thing that has to exist for a unit to function.
yeah, but nobody likes S1, S2, S3, S4. No, I mean, no offense to those guys. What I
Sure.
would like to see happen. So, like for context, right? I'm in North Carolina. Hurricanes just won the Stanley Cup. Go Canes. A lot of awesome YouTube content coming out. One kind of recurring theme you'll see is guys in the weight room training, preparing, like, quote unquote, optimizing. I cannot imagine that in a professional sporting environment, you would consider the human performance side of things as optional. It's what you do to excel at your sport.
Ooh, interesting. How many professional athletes get their human performance outside of the team's provided staff?
Tom Brady just brought his in,
Hmm.
apparently. I
So I
mean,
think
then you're
there's
getting
just,
into
I think
like,
some of the same problems exist there too.
well, I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't, I mean, we have folks that could answer that, but like off season versus in season and like organizational rules and players' unions and those kinds of things. But the point is, at that level of professionalism, that's as much a part of your success as anything else. And I think the, the big step we need to take in the embedded human performance space or the tactical world is making human performance like critical to mission success. We just haven't quite figured that out yet. Maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a data thing. I don't know. But for lack of having that right now, it is sales, it is marketing. I'd be so curious to have like a sales marketing agency come in and just
Mm.
like what would happen if we turned H2F over to like a Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue advertising agency and said, "Hey, make this cool. Make soldiers want to use this." I would love to see what they would come up with.
Hmm. That'd be an interesting.
Maybe we should do that for funsies. No offense to like the early trade. Like you're one of the, no offense to you guys for, you guys did a good job. I just don't know if a Pentagon in yellow with a bunch of
No,
soldiers in
it ain't
different
it. I'm
positions,
sorry.
it's
I've
like,
said this before. I said this when I was at the headquarters. It ain't it.
it's not. And again, no offense to those guys. There's a reason why when you buy
I
a
would not
MacBook,
buy a shirt with that on it.
no. Anyway,
Actually, I've worked at enough places that had a lot of shirts with that logo on it, and I still didn't buy or wear those. Like it's not.
like it looks more like a road sign. I feel like I'm not trying to be mean. Sorry. I'd be curious what would happen if um, you've got the word holistic on here. What are your thoughts?
I think holistic is a bad brand.
Interesting.
What define holistic, Drew?
All encompassing.
And I think I agree with yours slash Merriam-Webster's. Merriam-Webster says an approach that emphasizes the whole system rather than just its individual parts. And I'm good with that. And that is why it is in the name. And I dig it. The problem is, as soon as you say the word holistic, a lot of people that sell crystals get excited. And a lot of people that like their house has 200 plants in it gets excited. Like it's,
Well, is that because those industries sort of stole it? I mean, that has become a catch-all.
yeah, but like it's
What would you call
also,
it? What would you call it? What would you call it?
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for what the brand should be or
Total
what the word should be. But
functional.
I don't think like military service members get hyped about holistic.
again, branding, I'd be because you got Thor 3, you got
Mhm.
POTIF, you got War. What is the Marine Corps doing?
WAR is the Marine Corps one.
What does that stand for? Warrior Athlete.
Warrior athlete, something resilience.
Did they just reverse Raw? Ranger Athlete.
It's warrior athlete readiness and resilience.
So it's war.
Yeah, it's 2 R's.
War. And
And
then
they managed to cram like a solid number of buzzwords into that. So that's, I mean, respect. But
yeah. Does it and does it even have to be an acronym?
no,
Could it just be a word, you know?
I would love it to be a word instead of an acronym. I
Just
think
like
we are way too hooked on acronyms as the Department of War.
the more we're hanging at this point, the more I'm curious just to see if we could find somebody in advertising to like
Mm-hmm.
case
Be kind
studies.
of, if anybody out there knows
Yeah.
like advertising branding folks,
Like those
and
guys
I'll
on
do a little
Instagram
searching.
that like will redo a company's logo for
That'd
funsies. That'd be kind of sick.
be pretty cool.
Dude, we're gonna stop talking about this because we might trademark what we're about to say. Okay, so we've talked about the branding, the marketing ad infinitum. Let's go to contracting. Man, this is a topic we talk about this quite a bit. Um, where do you want to go first? Personal services?
Yeah, should I? I'm about to like repeat something we just did on the last episode. Should I do it or
Sure.
should I?
No, do
Okay.
it. Do it.
Um, not everybody listens to every episode. So if you listen to our previous episode and the whole section on personal services contracts, skip the next 30 seconds. Um, According to the FAR, section
What's the
37104,
FAR? What's the
the
FAR?
Federal Acquisitions Regulation,
There you go.
it governs how we acquire things, do contracts, do acquisitions, all that kind of stuff. Um, and it says, and like the reason I'm talking about this is because there's this weird debate about whether contracted coaching should be personal services or non-personal services. Right now, it is non-personal services, meaning nobody at the unit directly supervises those folks. Like nobody's their boss. They provide a service. You can't tell them what to do necessarily. It gets complicated and weird because there are only personal services exemptions for medical and special operations and some weird special ones for expert consulting. We should define our terms. A personal services contract is characterized by the employer-employee relationship it creates between the government and the contractor's personnel. The government is normally required to obtain its employees by direct hire under competitive appointment or other procedures required by civil service laws. Obtaining personal services by contract rather than by direct hire circumvents those laws unless Congress has specifically authorized acquisition of the services by contract. Why do agencies still do it then or pretend they're not doing it? It is because getting new, either active duty or civil service positions authorized literally requires an act of Congress. So like you either need to like move those positions from somewhere else, so convince another organization in your agency to give up their positions, or you need to get Congress to increase the total manpower of your service. Those are hard things to do. Those are very political things to do. So people end up contracting. I would suggest that in coaching in particular, we are explicitly violating the FAR because the following descriptive elements should be used as a guide in assessing whether or not a proposed contract is personal in nature. Performance is on site. Tools and equipment are furnished by the government. Services are directly applied to an integral effort of the agencies tied to its function or mission. Comparable services are performed in the same or similar agencies using civil service personnel. The need for the service can reasonably be expected to last beyond 1 year, and the inherent nature of the service or the manner in which it is provided reasonably requires directly or indirectly government supervision of contractor employees in order to yada, 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 other stuff. Those are all the criteria for what defines personal services. I think coaching is very obviously personal services. We should probably clean that one up. And I think if we cleaned it up, it would pave the way to higher pay and better working conditions for coaches.
Are non-personal services contracts cheaper?
I believe so, yes. I don't
Yeah.
know for sure, though. Talk to an acquisitions professional.
I just assumed it was like the easier, I guess for lack of the exemption, right? I would assume it's the easier.
One additional thing that makes personal services contracts unique is that the government gets a vote in who gets hired and fired.
Yeah, like you can look at resumes,
Mhm.
which, lo and behold, back to the entrepreneur phenomenon, how fun would it be to start a business when you can't choose who's working for you?
Yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about that a lot. and we should probably continue to talk about it. What will be interesting, and we've mentioned this in last week's episode as well, or whenever it was with Kevin, if as these embedded programs grow across different branches, if some branches do the personal services move and others don't, and what that means for staffing and who leaves and comes and goes and all these kinds of things. Um, One thing I wanted to put out there in terms of what I would change is I would, in fact, have a GS for the lead strength coach specifically, and the lead athletic trainer
100%.
probably
No doubt.
as well. At a minimum, there you could probably make a
Ideally, a
case for
lead and an
others.
assistant that are GS, and then maybe
Correct.
contractors after that.
One for like career progression,
Yep.
because right now there isn't any.
I'm going to say something crazy too. It's
Go
easy to
for it.
forget. I think you take it for granted. I think the lead strength coach should be the same pay grade as the physical therapist, the dietitian, the occupational
sure.
therapist. Yeah.
100%. I mean, this sounds self-serving because I'm in a like director position. I would bump that to a GS 14, and I would have a 13 lead, because would that would be more equivalent to what, well, then we're getting into weird waters because that's what the active duty billets are. They should be O4s. They are not filled with O4s, which is an entirely separate conversation that we may get into here, but you'd want that kind of level of expertise and professionalism in those positions, arguably. And then you allow for some career progression. Maybe you even parse out those remaining positions as like assistants versus head. I mean, I don't know how you could do it, but at a minimum, I would want to see lead strength coaches and lead athletic trainers as GS.
I'm a fan. I think one other that we had noted here that we're at risk of missing if we move past this section, and this would, I guess you could technically achieve this without it being personal services, but it'd be a lot easier if it was personal services, is deliberately staffing, in particular the coaching side, with a variety of specialties.
Yeah.
I think I mean, you'd see this more than I would. Are we pretty heavy on the powerlifter football category of
Yeah.
coach?
Yeah, but I don't know. Yes. I would argue that is more an issue with strength and conditioning at large, which we've talked about. Um,
Can I take an NSCA shot real quick?
Please.
Usually it's you.
I
Usually it's
was
you
gonna
doing
say it'd be
this.
nice to come from you.
Hopefully they're not mad at me because like I don't know if this is like fully out in the open yet, but they are updating / have updated the TSAC practitioners course.
Okay.
Drew, do you know what the main addition that they added in this update was?
Please tell me it's endurance.
It now contains conditioning.
So this reminds me of when McDonald's started selling chicken nuggets with all white meat. It begged the question, like, what was it beforehand? If you now include conditioning in your strength and conditioning like education, what were you doing before? Was it not? I guess I should know that because I took that cert.
And to be clear, there is a difference between the TSAC practitioners course and the TSAC certification. Those are two different things. You would
That's a
think
good
they would
point.
be more similar. They're
I was gonna
not
say
quite the same.
that's interesting.
So like there is conditioning content in the
Mhm.
TSAC certification. I can confirm that. But the practitioners course, which I remain confused. I've had multiple meetings with the NSCA in multiple of my different job capacities where I've tried to understand, is the TSAC course for strength coaches who are trying to coach tactical professionals, or is it for tactical professionals who are taking on some strength and conditioning responsibilities? And like the answer is always just like, yeah. But
Yes.
like, I don't know if I would make the course the same for those two different populations.
Yeah. I think to get to your point, what you would love to see is some variety on your coaching staff. You
Yes.
solve for that, I think, not by creating multiple different contracts, but by just doing personal services.
Mhm.
Because then, literally, as a hiring person, you can look at the resumes, you can determine what you want, and you can select for that. And then, I guess I don't know where this gets into ethics or whatnot. Like if you can advertise for positions at your level, like maybe I hop on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm looking for a coach that can do XYZ. call me or whatever. Um, really quickly, because I just hit on it, and I think for the active duty folks, it's worth bringing up. So I mentioned like O4 billets versus who's actually filling these. So on the Army side, we've talked about strength coaches; those are contractors. You also have pillar leads who are active duty. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but those pillar leads are O4 billets. Like they should be majors, correct?
I looked up like a version of the org chart just to check, and I don't know what like the UMD says, so like maybe we should talk
I
to
think
S1
I'm
about it.
talking UMD.
But the like document I pulled up when it came up said 03 to 04.
03 to O4, sure. And I think that that's probably a good landing spot. The issue that I have though is that these medical career fields, i.e., physical therapist, dietitian, occupational therapist, these positions are now being filled by direct accessions, O2s ish, O1 not quite so much, but like this for some folks, this is their first assignment in the Army, which, okay, you could convince me why that should be a good thing. However, the issue you run into is that individuals in those career fields can't promote because there's not enough billets for them to promote into because we're taking these O3, O4 billets and giving them to O2s. We're giving them to second lieutenants, junior captains. So you end up in this weird kind of, I don't know, purgatory where you would want H2F, you would want soldier facing embedded human performance clinics, quote unquote, to be a very attractive place to land in your career. But it's not always the case because of the kind of mismatch between HRC, who they're putting into these positions, and who kind of ends up landing there versus at the clinic or, you know, a hospital somewhere or whatever. There are people out there who know far more about that than I do. I recognize I'm a civilian and I'm just kind of regurgitating what I live with every day, but it's important, I think, to maintain some level of career trajectory, not only for our contractors and our civilians, but also our active duty folks. And you would want, I think, a place for junior officers to land in something like this without cannibalizing your officers at higher levels.
This was not on our document as a planned topic, but I got a question for you, Drew. Do you
Please.
think there should be an H2F MOS?
What would you mean by that? Like somebody who leads PT?
That's a good question. Defining the scope of the MOS
Correct. Because I think
is
right now
certainly
it's all
challenging.
about right now what I have seen, like so there are initiatives going on within the H2F model to create ASIs, which is additional skill indicators, and SQIs, which is skill qualifier
Sure. Yeah.
ish, which is kind of an MLA, but not really. Um, what I see is just a muddying of all the pillars into one thing. Like we just want to give you all the knowledge of all the pillars, but what really are you? I think as a program director, what I would love to see is like an NCOIC H2F MOS type position. I would, and we've talked about this before, but like when we had the British military guys on, like a PTI would be kind of cool. Where I get a little worried about that though is then as soon as you create that, people are going to start asking like, well, why do you need this or this, like these civilian contractor roles? So I don't know. I'd be curious. I could be convinced either way, I think is what I would say.
I think my stance, and people might be surprised by this, given that I like taught MFT for a long time and cared about it and loved it. Although I've openly admitted many times that I'm not sure whether we were effective or not. I would only be interested in an H2F MOS if there were pretty high standards for who could like pursue that, get it, and then stay in those positions. And I do not think the Army is prepared to enforce standards high enough that those people would be taken seriously.
Yeah, you could convince me
The
of that.
moment there is another person in the formation who is just obviously better at that stuff, it doesn't matter what your job title is, what your MOS is, you're done. And
Correct.
that's really hard to do.
Yeah. Which is why I think maybe ASI SQI is where it lands for now, which gets us into this next topic you have on here, which is the coach NCO relationship. That's fun.
And for those who are not like talking about this problem all the time, like we are, I feel like we should frame the issue. And it really comes down to like, do you believe the role of coaches is to directly lead sessions? Do you believe the role of coaches is to like prepare NCOs to lead better sessions, or do you believe it is somewhere in between or a combination of both?
What do you think?
I think it is like just objectively true that it's both.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
it's both.
it's like in every other domain, the army understands crawl, walk, run, and like show them what right looks like first. Great way to show them what right looks like is a coach leading a session. I but you've got some senior leaders that are like allergic to seeing that will like freak out.
I've seen coaches get fired for leading PT.
Yeah,
Mhm.
fascinating.
Fired or moved, which is insane.
That's wild.
Um, and I don't
But
know.
you are in a position where you know this. Like, what does their PWS say about what their role is?
That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Specific to this exact action, I don't know. There's a lot of catch-all language though in there in terms of like doing whatever the program director says, or needs of the brigade commander, etc. This is one of those things though, where I don't know how you would fix this in the same way that some of our other things were, which would be literal like changing of contracting, etc. Like that's just a cultural thing. We've talked about the H2FI and the H2FA. I think that gets after a little bit of this, but I might make some enemies here. I think until we move away from this idea that PT needs to be more existential than just physical training and improving your ability to perform, we're going to continue to have this kind of like this issue. Because on the one hand, you have coaches coming from a background in which physical training is designed to take you from point A to point B from a performance standpoint more often than not. And then on the other hand, you have sort of a military culture that says PT is more than just training. It's a leadership development opportunity. It's yada, yada, yada. And I think both of those are correct in some capacity, but how they coexist is where the friction lies.
Well, you were talking, I was trying to like look up actual job description of coaches, and the language is weirdly vague. It implies that like the coach's role is just develop programs. It doesn't have a lot of language about direct coaching.
Hmm. What's interesting, I think I'm stealing this from Michael Blevins because he actually did something about this. But coach, the term coach comes. You know where this comes from?
No.
Don't Google it. 15th century Hungarian village of Kocs, Kocs,
Hmm.
manufactured a highly innovative suspension-equipped horse-drawn carriage designed to comfortably transport passengers. Basically, take someone from A to B. That's the role of a coach, is to transport somebody
Hmm.
from A to B. Which wild, and again, I use the term existential a lot, but that kind of nails it. Um, you're meant to guide somebody along a path, again from A to B, and we cage that within the language of the gym because that's where this term exists now. But if you think about it, the term coach is used in a lot of industries, and it's kind of always meant to be the same thing, like a guide of some sort. So, to your original question about what's the role of a coach, if as a coach you self define as just X's, O's, and programming, you're going to be a shitty coach. But if you can take a step back and be more of what I would call like a performance consultant, you're probably going to have a better time in this space.
Well, like if you Google image search strength and conditioning coach,
Oh, geez.
there's not a single picture of a program.
Well, yeah, if you
Like it's
Google the term,
people walking athletes through training sessions.
yeah, like highly innovative suspension equipped horse drawn carriages, right?
This took a weird turn, man.
As it often does. What's our vision? I mean, I don't know. What do you think? How would you fix this part of things?
I mean, one, I should revisit the language I pulled up of like the job description because I also don't see a lot in the job description about educating people. Um, like it's hard for me to actually even know what a lot of these responsibilities mean.
But my frustration with these, and I had this literally had this conversation today with my lead strength coach. It's like if if you are looking at your job description to tell you how to solve the problem in front of you versus looking at the problem in front of you and
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
and that's not to say to like work outside the scope of your contract is, heaven forbid, but you should be looking outward to solve the problem, not inward to figure out your limits in kind of a weird way. What I would want to see happen, and I know this is going to be different in different branches, because for example, the Navy doesn't have a brigade structure the way that the Army does, and whatever. But because the coach to athlete ratio is always going to be mismatched, you're always going to have one coach for way too many athletes. You need to have a policy in place that creates a structure to allow for that coach to have extenders. And we've tried
Yes.
to solve for that in a lot of cases with H2F trainer courses or extender courses or whatever. And I think the H2FI and the H2FA kind of tries to get there. What it's always going to be up against, though, is that kind of irony of you'd want your high performers to go to these courses and do the thing. Your high performers are also the ones that get tasked to do everything else. No good deed goes unpunished.
I'll hit you with a different angle. This is
Please.
one we've talked a lot about because we like in my day job, we're about to run a version of Extender course next week. We've done these a bunch of times. We've refined it a little bit. Um, what's the main thing? If you're trying to take like a junior NCO and turn them into like whatever we want to call the extender role, but like somebody who can lead better PT,
Mhm.
like receive guidance from a coach and implement it. What do you think like the most important things are for that person to know?
Interpersonal skills.
I would suggest interpersonal skills and like within a PT session, logistics and flow management.
Yeah.
Those are like the most important things in my mind. What do we end up teaching them in most of the typical versions?
Progressions and regressions of exercises.
Yeah, we teach them like periodization stuff. We teach
Yeah.
them physiology stuff. We teach them nutrition stuff. We teach them a
Yep.
bunch of stuff that they probably don't need to know.
Guys, let's be honest. There's too many apps, there's too many group chats, and there's too much noise. Teamworks gives your unit one place for news, events, and resources so nothing important gets missed. If you want to learn more, visit teamworkstactical.com today. Team, this episode of Mops and Moes is brought to you by Train Heroic. Train Heroic is a reliable, well-designed platform for programming, tracking, and communicating with athletes. If you've been with us for any length of time, you will know that Train Heroic is the platform that we use to power our own training, long and strong, which you can find at our website, mopsandmoes.com. If you're looking for a solid platform to support your own coaching, whether it's your full-time role or a side hustle, Train Heroic is definitely worth checking out. You can use the link in any of our show notes, you can find it in our newsletter, or you can head to our website, mopsandmoes.com/training to get your first week for free. What's funny is that like I think we see the biggest backlash from coaches when we say that coaches should teach. Coaches love more than anything to talk about what they know. Like the same dude that tells you he's not going to teach a class probably loves spending 15 minutes explaining a deadlift to an athlete and just wasting their time. So I'm intentionally kind of inflaming people there, but like it's worth thinking about. Should these programs be mandatory?
I'm a hard no on that.
I think I'm a hard no as well. I'm curious what that would even look like. You have to
And
do it.
my reason and like there's
Some
different
contracted
versions.
solutions out there that are mandatory. We've seen how
There are
that goes.
different versions of what mandatory means. I've seen like division level policies that say like every company's PT plan will have been signed off by a strength and conditioning coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of mandatory, but also not that big a problem for me. Like I can buy that. Like
I could get behind that.
I just I don't know. Different settings are different. Um and like I still think this is like a bigger picture question for like a data episode. But a lot of how we measure human performance programs is we track utilization. And I still don't know what a utilization is. And by that, I
A
mean,
touch point.
like if somebody from a human performance team briefs an auditorium full of 400 people, is that 400 utilizations?
I think so. Depends on who's looking at the data.
If a coach coaches 30 people, is that 30 utilizations? If a coach has a one-on-one consult, is that one utilization? If a coach trained an extender and now that extender leads a PT session that the coach doesn't even know about, is that 0 utilizations? Because I would argue that I sorted those in least to greatest actual impact,
Uh-huh.
but from greatest to least utilizations.
It's like widgets. Yeah, man, data. What a fun thing to talk about.
Like the thing I love seeing as a guy who leads one of these teams is when I am out and about on base and like one of two things happens. People just already know us, or I see a PT session happening that was clearly influenced by the stuff we teach. And like neither of those count as utilizations.
How would you this is kind of a question we've never asked when we have data people on here, but like let's say all of the sudden embedded human performance was not beholden to any data. We didn't have to justify it, we just knew it worked. How does that function in the kind of like budgetary infighting that the military require? Because you do have to, I mean, budget's decided at a congressional level. You're fighting for dollars. How do you fight? You justify. How do you justify? You use data, return on investment,
And
whatever.
that's where I disagree.
Please disagree
I,
with me.
I don't think senior leaders are nearly as data driven or evidence
I
based
think, yeah, you've said this
as we
before.
pretend.
It's all stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's stories and lobbying at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day.
And in another way of saying it is stories and relationships.
Sure, that sounds way better.
I'm very
okay.
excited for when like all of the senior leadership are people who like grew up with some of these
That's
things.
a good point.
Because like you said it at the top of the episode, like you just have to have an S1 and you just have to have an S3. Like you don't. You could have a
At
battalion
one
without
point in
those.
time, yeah, at one point in time, that was a new idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
Like there could just not be a medical treatment facility on the base.
Mm-hmm.
Like fuck them, right? Like that is an option. You could do that.
You could just not have that.
We used to not have that. That you used to, like there was an army before there was like hospitals on army bases.
I mean, shit, go the other way. There used to be horses.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're gone.
And horses seemed pretty mandatory at the time.
Yeah, how could we ever? In fact, early days of World War I, cavalry charges. That changed very quickly. Also French soldiers in red pants. Easy to shoot at. So what if we turned off all of the data tomorrow? Would embedded human performance go away? Like, do you need an athlete management system? These are just like wild left field questions I'm starting to think of. Like, what are we gaining? What if we just didn't?
I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to answer a different question. I think we spend a lot of our time, instead of letting data guide the mission, we let data become the mission.
1,000. That's why I hate LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
See, there you go. It's so true.
But like, that's the kind of shit I'd post on LinkedIn right there. And you just said it's so true.
It gets the people going. It's provocative. Nobody knows what it means. If ever there were a better quote. So bring this back to what we were talking about. Should it be mandatory? Pretty easy no, I think, for both of us. I'm going to let you go wild on community-based blueprinting here because I know this is what gets you going.
This is my new like thing lately. Again,
is
once
there
again,
a person that like we can get on to talk about this? Is it
hold
like
on.
a brand?
This conversation happened on LinkedIn.
Oh, jeez, I didn't see it.
Who I will find it. Because when Libby came on, she told us who the person was. And then I think Libby put up a post about the episode, I think. Who put up a post about the episode with Libby? Because apparently it wasn't Libby.
I don't know.
I'm looking like a jerk now for not remembering people's names because I've like met these people. Like I did, in fact, like work with them at one point. I was an intern at the organization that does this stuff.
Champ?
Hold on. I'm going. It used to be Champ doesn't exist anymore. Now it's Armor.
I
was corrected on that earlier today.
What does it stand for now?
I don't know.
Army Research Marine Operational Research.
Hold on. I'll answer that question. Then I'll go back to answering who the right person is. Advanced Research for Military Optimization, Readiness, and Rehabilitation.
Advanced Research for... So it's ARF more.
No, it's... Damn it, Drew.
I just hate that game where people pick and choose. We're going to use the second letter of this one, the first... It's arf more. Let's come on, call a spade a spade.
Rachel Chamberlain, I believe, would
Mm,
be the person to talk about community-based blueprinting. And I did like on LinkedIn say like, "Do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it?" And she said yes. So like
there you go.
that's already there. We just need to book it. That you can blame me for not closing the loop.
We'll close the loop, team. Explain it.
The I mean, very simply, it's the needs analysis stage of designing a human performance program, which is kind of one we skipped when we designed basically all the human performance programs that exist. Because as far as I know, community-based blueprinting has only been done like a couple times with specific Air Force career fields.
Well, to be clear, it's for like community planning. It's not
Yeah.
for him, just so people don't get
Well, I
confused.
think the iteration of it that Champ slash Now Armor did was
Charmer.
very much specific to human performance.
Sure.
I'm going to do a quick Google. Community-based blueprinting. So maybe there is like a broader community planning version of it.
That's what when I was researching it, I was landing in like
Sure,
basically letting jurisdictions
fair.
plan their own stuff.
But the idea is you study a population, you get to understand their occupational demands, you get to understand like where the choke points are, what the major determinants of performance outcomes are. And like as you learn what the big limiters are, you start to figure out what interventions could improve those limiters so that they no longer are your choke points, and like what professionals and what resources and what tools and what trainings could move the needle on those limiters. And that's how you decide what kind of staff and what kind of resources, rather than exactly the same team for an infantry brigade and an intel brigade and a sustainment brigade and an aviation brigade and the Navy and the Marines. And like we essentially are all operating based on a bunch of assumptions built in pro sport, division one sport, and special operations.
Yep.
Which are just pretty different from the places where we're trying to make it work now.
Yeah, and what's wild is when you look at like professional sport, for example, or really organizations with money and freedom, they will tailor their teams to what they think that they need. Like
Mhm.
I always think of like the rugby world and the All Blacks. Like they have a very robust sort of, we'll call it cognitive performance, so people get it. Very robust cognitive performance team because they've decided that's what they need. Even more fascinating, spend some time looking at how Tour de France teams are created and what they bring into the fold to really optimize for like the
Mm.
1%. Wild. Um, my question for that though, in this context would be, how can you do that when so much of the contracting and the structure is done at the highest echelon?
So, one, I should back up because this should probably have been a disclaimer at the top of the episode, but I will say it's super easy for us to be critical from the vantage points we are at right now, but we did not make the program exist. And frankly, I think a lot of these programs came into existence because small windows of opportunity presented themselves to people who were able to act fast.
Correct.
And a lot of what we're proposing here is to step back and be more analytical and like revise it and adjust it in ways that were impossible during those small windows of opportunity where you had to get something in place where your alternative was nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like an 80% plan executed now will always be better than a 100% perfect plan that you never get to execute.
It's like when you watch Lord of the Rings and you question why they didn't just get on the eagle's back and fly to Mordor. Like in the moment, there was a lot going on. So they took advantage of the opportunity they had. They still flew on the eagle's back. I don't know why they didn't just keep going, but anyway,
That to come back to it though, there are ways at higher levels to and I think the reality in like a bureaucracy the size of the government or the military, the answer is you kind of start one size fits all and then you refine. And I think if you look at the WPO memo that came out signed by the Secretary of War, it includes some language around identifying which things are working and investing in them, and identifying which things aren't working and removing them. And like that seems like the way ahead. I think
yeah.
we have to accept that like the one size fits all is where you had to start, and then the tailored version is where you go.
Well, the upside is this isn't going anywhere. So that's nice. I mean, I think
I don't
human
think so.
performance is here to stay. Um, okay, this is probably what most people were thinking we were going to get into when we started this whole thing, but like the missing capabilities. So like what sorts of teammates might we add to these things? What might we do away with in some cases?
Mm,
Um, I think the one that like the physician one stood out to me the most when we talked about some of the Navy, like a sports medicine physician. Does the Army have sports medicine physicians?
yes.
Okay. Does the Air Force?
I
I
don't
know not
know.
every
I
branch
should know that.
has them. I don't think the Air Force. Maybe they do. But the Navy obviously does. The medical the medical component of this, I think, would be very interesting. I would foresee that there would be a lot of issue with regard to like the hospital relationships, maybe. Because right now it feels like we're kind of dancing in the gray zone of is this medical, is it not? We can sort of get away with it once you throw a physician in there. But talking to Kevin Bernstein, like there's some clear upside with regard to oversight, credentialing, yada, yada, yada. And putting them in a division, I think makes sense, like you said here.
Do you think physician-run organizations like MTFs like lack respect for human performance teams because there are no physicians on them?
Hmm. I think so I'm going to take a step back from that and go even bigger picture. I think the traditional medical model in which physicians sit does not fully respect and comprehend the impact that this
Hmm.
type of thing can have.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm saying that because I was sitting in a functional medicine clinic today having this same conversation, but like this is not a knock on physicians by any means or, doctors in general, but it is a very like the metaphor that I would use is like your sink is dripping, there's puddles all over the floor. The traditional medical model is very good at cleaning up the puddles. Like you'll have
Mhm.
a dry floor, but the sink is probably still going to be dripping. And that's where I think some of this, we'll call it
Nice.
like lowercase m medicine, can be very beneficial. The joke I always make is we say left, right, and center that exercise is the best medicine, but I don't think very many physicians respect the role that the strength and conditioning coach plays in this whole thing.
All right. One of the dumbest things I see on the internet all the time is like the doctor of the future will prescribe exercise and vegetables and sunlight. And
Like, what does that mean?
brother, you already know those are good for you and you're not doing them.
Exactly.
Like a slip of paper that says go do them is not going to change that.
You might be able to get away with that if the doctor of the future, you were writing that in like the 1800s. We're there though, man. We're in the future. We know that to be true. So,
Like if a doctor writing down on their little prescription pad, like do exercise and eat vegetables,
yeah.
like if that changes how you behave, you are the problem.
Well, but that's just it. I think that is the issue. Like, I think that culturally, and again, this is going to sound like a knock on MDs. It's not, but like culturally, there's almost a pedestal effect
Mhm.
when it comes to so you could take advantage of that though. You could have a physician in this model, and all of the sudden, the entire enterprise almost gets elevated from like a perspective standpoint.
Yeah. I will also suggest that the problem with the medical model is not the doctors.
For sure, 100%.
It's the system. It
Absolutely.
sucks. The
Yeah.
incentives are not aligned with the outcomes we want. It's a MOPS versus MOS problem. They are super
Yeah.
focused on MOPS, and because MOPS is where the money is, and they are not chasing the MOs of like better health systemically.
But do you think that by doing it, because I mean, effectively within the military, you're not operating in an insurance model, which the insurance
Mhm.
model is what creates the
Yeah.
systemic issue in the
Yes.
first place. So, target of opportunity, you could explore what a MOS driven medical model versus a MOPS driven medical model looks like.
What
Hmm.
as I understand it,
Look at us,
DHA was created to make military healthcare more like civilian healthcare.
which is
And I
not good.
and I think that was the first mistake.
We got to get a DHA person on here at some point
Oh God.
just to ask, like,
Defend yourself.
what are we doing here?
Like,
What are we after? Um, I love these, right? The kind of the I was gonna say the silly ones, but like chiropractor, yoga instructor. Man, would a chiropractor not get a ton of folks through the door though? You'd have
I'm gonna be honest for a second. there are chiropractors I respect,
Oh, geez.
and I respect them in spite of the fact that they are chiropractors, not because they are chiropractors.
I think we can say that because we've had chiropractors on here who have basically said the same thing.
The chiropractor we brought on the podcast is literally a pariah in his
Yeah,
career field.
which is I love it.
the like
Yeah.
if your definition of chiropractor is somebody who like looks at health in like a more systemic way, great.
Mhm.
The field of chiropractic was invented by like a carnival dude who believed in like laying on hands, and like the fundamental theory of chiropractic is vertebral subluxations, which are, as far as we can tell from an evidence-based approach, not a real thing. Sorry, that was mean to
Well,
chiropractors, but they can crack your back real good.
there's a lot of people out there that believe in things that aren't real. Um, take that as you will. If we want to lean into the placebo though, and the marketing and the branding
Mhm.
like we've talked about, like I'm telling you, man, a chiropractor would probably be the busiest person on your team.
Like I'm open to admitting it. Like I have a physical therapist on my team. I do not have a chiropractor on my team, but like patient's favorite thing that my physical therapist does,
Manips.
crack their back.
Manipulate me, man. Yoga instructors. I'm pro yoga. People know this by now. Do you need a dedicated yoga instructor?
No, you
What's
need a
it
Team
called now?
RM
I
instructor.
was gonna say it's Team RM.
I, I, I honestly don't care if the Team R folks are listening. Stop it. Stop doing that.
You know, I'm gonna take a kinder approach. I get what's going on. I'm appreciative of the fact that we're trying to make yoga great again.
If
Um,
NFL players can take ballet classes and Pilates classes and yoga classes and get over it and like not worry about the weird
well,
branding
that's
issue,
just
then
it.
soldiers can do yoga.
That's just it. I think back to the branding thing, and this isn't specific to the yoga situation you're referring to. I think this is just writ large. Stop trying to like. Not everything needs to be cool. At some point, you just have to educate people to like stop being douchey and like accept that this is good for you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like we already have talked about, and I'm gonna put it here so we have to do it. If you listen to the Bernstein episode, Alex and I are each on our own going to take a Pilates class, and we're going to come back and do a podcast episode about our findings. So there you go. We don't need to rebrand it. It's not going to have a different acronym. Um, Slight pivot though, mental health. How would you bridge the gap with mental health on these teams?
The So like it's different depending on the service you are in, right? Like one of the unique things about the Army is that it already has embedded behavioral health in a lot of units.
Mm,
One of the problems I saw in early H2F implementation is some of the units who are in the greatest need receive the least resources.
that's true.
And so like some of those brigades got H2F teams, but still don't have embedded behavioral health. That's a classic example of like if something like community-based blueprinting was in place, we might have detected that issue and embedded a mental health provider into those H2F teams. I don't know. Like, maybe I should ask you. Like, does your brigade have embedded behavioral health? The fact that you even had to pause there tells me
No.
H2F and if they exist, EBH don't have much of a relationship. But you're in a
No,
weird
well
brigade,
that
so
is true. No, there is not a relationship there, so to speak. I think this,
I
it
lead a
gets
human
me.
performance team that does have a mental health provider on it. So
Well, it gets to the cognitive performance conversations that we've been having. I think what would be interesting is if we stopped trying to think that a cognitive performance specialist needs to address soldiers on a one by one basis and fix them
yes,
individually, and instead promote that more as a consultative position that sits at
Mhm.
almost a company or battalion or brigade level to help that level of leadership create their environments in such a way that it then lifts the, the quote unquote cognitive performance of the
Yep.
team, you know, that they lead. That would lead to some fast because right now, let me knock on the cognitive performance stuff for a second. I hate conferences. People know this. I hate conferences because we sit there and we talk about tactical agility, which is stupid. Cognitive performance likes to sit there and talk about here's the workout we did, here's the trick that we used, whatever. It would be fascinating if instead we had individuals in these positions telling us how they worked alongside their brigade commander to create a culture of health or a culture that prioritizes sleep, or we restructured our battle rhythm because we realized it was what was actually causing stress wasn't our deadlift numbers. It was we're working too long and the pressure in our organization is about to cause us all to
It
blow up.
is worth saying that we have seen a little bit more of that, where like
But
at a
it's on
conference
the
you have the human performance person and the commander present.
correct. I would love to see more of that. And I would love to
Mhm.
see us acknowledging that that is cognitive performance. Like that is how you solve behavioral health. It's not by creating a hotline necessarily or a new weird workout. Like dripping sink, puddles on the floor. Let's fix the sink. Do you want to hit case managers or no?
I mean, I think I haven't heard that much chatter about it for H2F specifically. I've heard it for other programs. I can see the utility. I think this is the same kind of situation as embedded behavioral health. The Army has battalion level physician assistants, brigade level surgeons who usually aren't surgeons, but that's whatever.
I didn't know
Um,
that for like a while.
yeah.
And that was like, oh, wait, what?
The first time I met my brigade surgeon when I was active duty, he was a pediatrician.
I thought
Um,
they were all surgeons.
yeah,
Like the name would lead you to believe.
it sure would. Um, I think there's what I worry about for the programs that are like leaning in on this is those positions historically, battalion PA brigade surgeon, exist to manage like the classic readiness version of medical, like
Mhm.
making sure PHAs are done and making sure we're tracking profiles and profile review boards and making sure the flu rodeo happens so everybody gets their flu shot and like whatever the thing like the kind of I don't know, the version of readiness that existed before embedded human performance was there where we
Like
actually cared about performance and stuff.
the slideshow
Yeah,
readiness.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn the red boxes green
Yep.
version
Are
of
you
this
green?
stuff. And
Mhm.
I do have some fear that if we merge those two, it might not improve the performance
Like
side.
muddy the waters.
Yeah, it's like a when you combine science and politics, all you get is politics.
Hmm.
When you combine performance and old school medical, I worry that old school medical incentives will drive things once you do
Well,
that.
I've seen it done well where you've got a good relationship with the PA, for example, and they
Yeah.
refer,
Yeah.
to
100%.
H2F.
It can
Like
be done.
that's it can be done. But it is a good point. Do you want to talk facilities? Do you want to talk data?
I think we'll move through these fast because we're already over an hour here.
We don't move through things fast.
I think on the facilities side, senior leaders crave standardization.
Mm.
And I don't. I have said this in my day job. I've said this in this capacity. I've said this everywhere that like I think we should resist standardization as much as we reasonably can. Some degree of it is inevitable. Um, the guy who hired me into my current position has a thing he says often about like we don't want to turn this into Mick Wellness, where like every program you go to is exactly the same and like reading from the same slides. We have seen that. Like military folks are used to all these programs that supposedly do resilience and performance and
Mick
wellness and
Wellness.
fitness and whatever all across the department where
Hmm.
you go in and it's like contractors who can only deliver approved content
Yep.
and it sucks.
Yep.
And I think there's a risk of the same thing happening to facilities and equipment. I would love to retain like in my perfect world, we figure out how much the stuff costs. We give that money to the local team and we let them figure out what it looks like. Now I know that's hard because that means the local team now has to like do all the jumping through hoops on engineering and facilities and real
Mm.
property and whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so like that'll be hard and they might need help. But like maybe instead of developing standardized solutions, what the staff at the headquarters should do is help knock down those hurdles for the local teams as they try to build the version that works for them.
Yes. Will that happen? No.
I'm without blurring too far into my day job, I'm watching it happen across teams in a different service.
In a different service. Keyword.
I don't know. We've also seen it happen in like all these conversion facilities where you turn readiness bays into gyms or like
Well, here's
Forza
what's
barracks into gyms, like it's happening. So like,
without revealing trade secrets, right? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to build a lot of buildings and they're all going to have the same stuff in them. As soon as you walk away, that stuff is getting moved, replaced, changed. You come back in a year, that place is it's going to look the same from the outside, unless your team's created their own logo, as we discussed in the aforementioned branding segment. But on the inside, it's going to look very different. And good luck trying to keep that from happening. You have to bolt things.
there's an easy precedent to point to, right? Like in MWR facilities across the military services, there's been this phenomenon where basketball courts get converted into functional fitness spaces, right? We've seen versions of that everywhere, but they're all different.
Yeah.
And that is okay and good.
Correct. It's funny because for as much as they would want standardization, they seem to love to feature cool, unique facilities on like official LinkedIn and Instagram pages. We'll brush by all that data stuff. Man, is this its own topic.
And we've done whole episodes on this, and like I don't know how much time we need to spend on it here. I wish we could get less hooked on data.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to be a contrarian for a second. I'm going to say just team, like for a second, like thought experiment with me. What if we just didn't collect data? Like what if we did what our good friend Newton Chang did at Google and we just accepted that it worked. We advocated at the top. We understood that when we say people first, we actually mean people first. We invested in these programs and we let the adjacent metrics showcase the return on investment. We didn't create our own metrics and become a metrics farm. I just would be curious. I don't know if that's the right answer, but I'm just curious. Like, what if we didn't have an athlete management system?
So I'll do a slightly different take. Every one of these programs, POTIF, H2F, WAR, whichever one you want, before it existed, somebody put together, based on data that already existed, where it was collected in systems of record, the problem statement. Like, hey, this is the problem we're trying to solve. This is why I need money. I want to fix these things. It seems superficially obvious to me then that we shouldn't collect other things. We should just watch what happens to those things.
Yes.
Cool.
That's all we're going to say about that. But, then people wouldn't have stuff to do.
On the wearable stuff, I will pitch some strong arguments here real quick, because wearables are super hype right now. The Department of War, as far as I can tell, wants a wearable on every service member.
I'm so anti-wearable now.
I am becoming more anti-wearable the further we go down this rabbit hole.
You're about to get a Shark Watch. You're going to be on the Shark Watch train pretty soon.
We'll see. Maybe. But I mean, it's true. Like, I can't even imagine going for a run now without GPS and heart rate. Like,
so liberating.
And that seems like a problem.
It is a problem. It is a problem. Take it off.
But
go paleo. Go paleo. Yeah. Take all your clothes off. Go.
So I'll say a couple things. These are opinions I've come to somewhat strongly that will conflict with opinions of others. These are just my opinions. One is that if you're going to do a military wearables program, the service member should interact with the exact same commercial wearable app that every civilian who buys that device uses. It should not be a custom military interface. It should not be a separate athlete management system. Like, athlete management systems should face the team that manages the athletes, the human performance team. They should not be, to the degree possible, like all the data-y stuff and the tracking should be transparent. Like, it should not be something they are because they don't want to, and so they won't. My other one is, have I pitched on this podcast before if I had to do a wearables program in a unit, how I'd want it to look?
Maybe. Do it again.
It's simple. It is a closet, and in the closet are boxes of every imaginable variety of wearable. And service members come to the human performance team and get to go in the closet and pick one, maybe two, who knows. And the price is, and we don't track it, we don't put it on their hand receipt. I don't really care. The price for it is they accept that a certain subset of their data, not all of it, definitely not all of it, but enough to monitor for severe outliers gets captured by the human performance team. And it goes into some kind of athlete management system that the soldier doesn't even know exists, because that's important. Like if you're trying to sell them on it, like you've already lost them. They're just using the normal app that comes with the device. They picked the one they like. Maybe they're a Whoop person or an Aura person or a Garmin person or a Polar person or a Suunto person. I don't care.
Or a
They get to
Sharkwatch person.
They get to pick the one they like, and their data goes into some kind of monitoring system where, like, really the only thing I care about is that the human performance team can, one, monitor trends across the entire organization. So, like, we're leading up into NTC. How are people doing during the deployment? How are people, like, whatever it is, like, we can monitor trends. And two, we can detect outliers. Like when something gets real weird, when somebody's sleep gets really bad, or when somebody's stress gets really bad, or when like any variety of things where like we want to go find that person right now and talk to them and make sure they're okay, we can detect that and we can find that person. Those are the only things I need the program to do.
So why aren't we doing that?
I think we're trying to do it and we end up overcomplicating it. And there's a lot of policy stuff, and we should have folks who are working on some of those come on. Most of them can't come on and won't comment.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's a conversation we should do.
It is interesting why, and I hate doing this because like we know people who are working on these things and they're great people. But it is just interesting to think about man, there's a lot of energy and momentum behind some of this stuff. And like, what is going to come out of it? What are we going to get? I don't know. We might get great things. But to your point, most service members aren't going to lock their shit. So that's why I go back to, if I were going to change anything at all, I'd be curious what it would look like to just not have any of it and just see.
An argument I keep hearing for wearables is if you like walk around the Pentagon, all the leaders have wearable devices, so they must be good.
No, dude.
And I think you're deep in a reverse causality situation. Like it is not, it wasn't the wearables that made those people become fit and professionally successful and senior leaders.
Correct.
Like they bought it as a tool somewhere along their journey.
That's what's interesting about wearables is like the folks who need them least are the target market.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you like fitness. You've already figured it out. You're clearly healthy. Buy this thing. They don't need like.
But I don't think it's going to fix the people who.
It's not gonna fix anything.
Like.
People don't understand how little we actually know about the human body, and to think that you can capture something relevant from green blinking lights on your wrist. Like you'll get some stuff, sure, and you could see trends across time. Great. But like, you know what else creates positive trends? Just like consistently being a good person. And you don't need a device to figure that one out. I get sick of people who are assholes, but they're pumped because their Whoop tells them they're healthy.
I'll ask another one that came up on LinkedIn recently, and it's a statement I've made a million times, but I am fairly convinced that we are essentially refusing to make any changes based on the data we already have.
100%.
Which makes me very confident 100%. That additional data won't help.
Yeah. It's the sunk cost fallacy, as it were. You guys
just stop making data the mission. Let the people, like, here's another one, right?
Maybe it's people first, data always. Maybe that's the war cry.
But like nobody seems to be asking the folks implementing these programs what data they need to implement better, or if they need more data to implement better.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, they kind of do, but that,
I don't know. Do they?
I don't know. Do they?
I feel like they already know what they could do to implement better, and it's either just hard or bureaucratically a bridge too far, or like, I think most programs on the ground already know a bunch of ways they could do things better.
Correct.
And I don't think a whole bunch of data.
Is that a military specific issue, or is that just an issue of large organizations?
No, it's just an issue of large organizations.
Yeah.
That's not unique to the military at all.
I know. I want to say that out loud, though, because people hear us say these things. They're like, you guys hate the military. It's like, no, we don't. We hate large organizations. Speaking of policy, I'm going to let you go ham on this.
Yeah, I'll run through this fast because I don't know how many people are nerdy enough. And like, if you're nerdy about this stuff, meet me on LinkedIn because that's like where I talk about this stuff.
Catch me outside.
some of the changes that would make military human performance a lot better are not in the control of the services. And they are also not in the control, well, in some cases they are. Some of them are in the control of the Department of War at the Pentagon level. So like DOD or DOW policy. And some of them are literally laws. And like, so like actual laws would have to change to fix some of the problems. And so
Laws
I'm going
can't
to
change
run
though.
really quick through some of the top ones in that like Pentagon or higher echelon where I think we could fix some things that nobody thinks about because this is really weird and nerdy. Um, the Randolph Shepherd Act, and I'm going to Google this to make sure I'm not like completely off base. Let's see. Randolph Shepherd Act is a 1936 federal law that mandates a priority for legally blind individuals to operate vending facilities such as snack bars, cafeterias, vending machines on federal and other government properties.
Hmm.
I believe the Randolph Shepherd Act is administered by the Department of Education. And the Randolph Shepherd Act, as far as I can tell, is the primary hurdle to better dining facilities and better nutrition on military bases because the requirements are onerous. And so it is like a huge, and like, I think we may have I think we may have gotten like a Randolph Shepherd exemption for something that's campus style dining. So it didn't have to go through that process. But I think a modernization update to what year did it say that was? 1936. So
1936.
we're at the 90th anniversary of that law. Maybe we
Yeah.
revisit briefly how it affects the way we feed service members.
That's a weird and interesting
Mhm. I
situation.
did not believe it when I first heard it. Like somebody DM'd me and said, like the problem is that the Department of Education oversees DFACs. I was like, that sounds crazy.
That's like when you found out, or when you find out that the Treasury Department runs the Secret Service.
Like just weird stuff, man.
It's like, wait, what? Anyway, carry on. Policy.
Um, on the wearables piece, I think we need some cybersecurity regulation updates. I think we're like basing a lot of stuff on weird exemptions. I think like a coherent policy on it. It's time for that. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to write it. Other people would have to do that.
Hmm.
I don't have like a lot of witty hot takes on that one like I do in the Randolph Shepherd Act, but
Well, I don't know if this falls within that same nest necessarily, but like military policy does not move near fast enough to
no,
keep up with wearable technology innovation. So
correct.
that's a problem that's going to rear its head as we
Yep.
become more and more dependent on these things.
Um, moving on to my next one, I think we need some policy on distinctions between medical care provided in clinical settings, medical care provided in embedded or operational settings, medical care provided in training and combat settings. I don't think those lines are very clear. Um, this one again for the nerds, but like historically for embedded human performance teams, their credentialing flows through whatever the local military treatment facility is.
Yep.
Military treatment facilities see themselves as hospitals. So they behave like hospitals and they follow hospital policies. And there's this risk of hospital policies bleeding into embedded human performance teams because they want them to operate by the same standards, even though they work in a totally different environment. Um, I'm starting to see movement in at least one or two services towards credentialing of medical providers on human performance teams flowing through an entirely different channel than the medical treatment facility. Just bifurcating those two, like getting human performance away from anything DHA touches. And I am a huge fan of that. At the end of the day, like the thing that confuses me more than anything else is how we are the same organization that can do trauma care in a trench on a battlefield, and yet we struggle with what rules should govern giving somebody exercises to do for physical therapy. Like,
Man, I think a surprising amount of the BS just comes down to like people need something to do. What is the saying? Don't take for malice what can be explained away by ignorance or
yep.
something like that. Um, okay, last one.
My last policy one, and I will acknowledge. So this is a recommendation that we need to update DoD Instruction 1308.3, which is the DoD's Physical Fitness and Body Composition Program. And like nerds will know that it was changed very recently. And even bigger nerds will know that the recent change was a huge feat. It took years to get to the March 2022 version. We are now on change one. Like they did some changes last year, and it did a little bit, but it did very bureaucratic things. I think a rewrite specifically of like what the standards for how fitness is tested could open the aperture to a much more modernized approach to fitness across the services. That's all I'll say without turning this into like a whole episode on that thing. But like it's just written weird. I'll read a couple sentences that like help give examples here. At a minimum, services will prescribe service-wide standards to measure body composition, aerobic fitness, and anaerobic fitness. That's weird. That's a weird way to like aerobic and anaerobic fitness. So do you mean like long runs and short runs, or do you mean like cardio and by anaerobic you meant strength? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
it's a bit
it's just
odd.
weird. The military service may establish scientifically supported occupational specific standards. Okay. Um, the required assessments are considered generalized baseline fitness levels and are not intended to represent occupationally specific fitness demands. So the service level test is specifically not supposed to tie to anything occupationally specific. Huh?
Hmm.
Like we're at this point we are drawing like needless distinctions between things. I just think it's awkward. I think they could leave more flexibility to the services. Yeah.
I mean, is anyone following that anyway?
Only kind of.
It's DODI 1308.03.
Frankly, like language from DODI 1308.03 is what broke the original ACFT.
Interesting.
I think we had something good, but because the rationale for it involved occupationally specific correlations, it was like dead on arrival.
That's some deep weed stuff. That's some ball knower stuff.
If you go back and look at some of the like congressional RFIs on the ACFT as we were fighting over it, you'll see a lot of references to language that's in DOD 13.3.
Okay.
Drew talks about ball knowers when it comes to like exercise and strength training and stuff. Like
there's policy ball knowers too. There you go. See? You've made it. Close this out.
How about a moment of appreciation?
There we go.
I think the fact that we get to have a podcast where we talk about military human performance and people listen to it, and it even in some cases generates funds and stuff and like lets us work on other projects, is a testament to how far this space has come in the last 10 or so years. And so we just spent like an hour and a half being real critical, but like we only get to do this because people that came before us seized opportunities and built programs.
You can't critique something that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and like we critique because we care.
Correct. I think as a useful reframing for folks out there, again, this is a conversation I was having today at work, like, because we see, I mean, with the social media and the website, we sort of like set ourselves up for commentary, and there's sort of the military side that talks a lot of smack about these programs. There's the programmatic side that can talk a lot of smack about, their customers, the military. But at the end of the day, like none of that smack would exist if this wasn't here in the first place. So I would echo your kudos to the folks that sort of did the hard work to create a lot of this, because of the WPO stuff and the DOW memos and all the things. Like you're going to see human performance spread its wings across the entire military, acknowledging that in our case, Army and H2F was sort of the first mover. There's inevitably going to be flaws. I think where we do ourselves a disservice, back to conferences and LinkedIn, is when we pretend that those flaws don't exist. We don't have it figured out. There are issues. There are things that we could do better. And some of those things would have a far bigger impact than some of the things that we're currently working on. So, think of this more as constructive criticism than two douche nozzles with microphones. Or, maybe you already think of us like that. Rounds complete.
Drew, what's your favorite upper body exercise?
Mm. I did, I wanna say pull-ups. Today, though, I did, like I guess I call them sled drags, like, full 100-foot rope and hand
Mm,
over hand pulling. I
yep.
really enjoyed those. But, I'm also partial to the landmine. I might say landmine press.
Ooh.
Yeah. Push or pull, though, because you could get deeper.
Do we need to pick upper body push and upper body pull favorite exercises?
Maybe. Well, then, yeah. I mean, maybe. What's yours?
Not to copy a previous podcast guest, weighted pull up.
I do
Um,
like a pull-up. I
in
think
part
pull-up's
that comes
underrated.
from like I don't know if it's necessarily a better exercise. It's just an exercise I'm really good at. Um, like
We tend
disproportionately good
we
compared to other
tend
stuff.
we tend to like things we're good at.
A,
Pull-ups
a
are
weird
good.
a weird one for upper body push that like I haven't been including a lot lately, and I should. I've just been being boring and doing overhead press. Um, but I used to do like in my warm ups for overhead press. So maybe this is more of a corrective exercise or whatever. But like
Mm.
um, single arm barbell overhead press,
That's old school.
which is like a lot of balancing.
That is a lot of balancing.
Um, I like it a
Yeah.
lot though.
No, that's a good one. Lower body?
Lunge,
I do love a
barbell
lunge.
weighted lunge,
I think a Bulgarian split squat is hard to argue. I love an alpine lunge, which
alpine
is
lunge.
you do a lunge. I think the knees over toes guy kind of stole this, but elevate your front heel and get super deep
Sure.
into the range of motion. That's good. I think favorite exercise though might be like a D-ball ground to shoulder if we're
Hmm.
talking just like full body.
If we're talking like period, and I can't even do it because my current gym situation doesn't allow for it. I guess I could set it up at our outdoor space if I bought the right things. Um, get a yoke,
Do like a yoke.
set the bar of the yoke at like chest or shoulder height, then get like at least 100-pound D-ball or sandbag, and it's like the D-ball goes over the yoke, then you go over the yoke. Then the D-ball comes back, then you come back. So it
That's a good
incorporates
one.
both like a lower body lift, like an Atlas stone kind of move,
Hmm.
and then like an obstacle coursey, like hop up and hop down thing.
You love an obstacle course.
I used to do it when I was back at Fort Eustis, where they like had yokes at the gym on bait. I did that all the time. It was a great.
You know what?
Mm,
I genuinely think you and I could fill an hour of just talking about our favorite exercises. We should do that. We should each come to the table with our favorite exercises
be a
and
good
just talk.
one.
We'll get John involved too.
That'd be a fun one.
Let's do that. We'll bookmark this one, team. We'll close out in our critique of embedded humor performance across the military, and we will whet your whistle for a discussion on our favorite exercises
Hell yeah.
coming to a platform near you. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. See you guys next week.
Hey, Alex, let's cover our ass real quick.
Oh, great idea, Drew. All right, guys. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Before you go, please rate and review the pod on the listening platform of your choice. You can also visit us on our website at www.mopsinmos.com. That's mops, the letter N, mos.com. You can check out the library of podcast episodes, our latest blog entries, any helpful resources, and also sign up for our newsletter.
Drew nailed it. Just to underline a couple of things, the podcast entries have in-depth show notes on the website. So if you missed anything or you want to read any of the research we talk about, it is all there. You can, at the bottom of the website, sign up with your email and receive future updates from us. The blog posts go a little bit more in depth in kind of written form on a couple of topics we get questions about all the time. But most importantly, I just want to ask all you guys, our best way the word gets out is absolutely word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell the people you work with, anybody you think would find it useful. Thanks for spreading the word.
If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at either Drew or Alex at mopsinmos.com.
Or there's a contact form on the website.
Thank you.
Team, we all sleep. We all conduct a bunch of activities. We all train and we all recover from stress. Teamworks pulls it all together in real-time readiness dashboards because when data is connected, readiness follows. Visit teamworkstactical.com today to learn more.